Hi VC, time to show you some recent pickups. Some of these I picked up in Paris, and at the moment I'm in Croatia, and I picked up one album here just yesterday. It's a mixture of stuff that's been on my want list for a fair while and stuff that I picked up just because I hadn't seen it before and it looked interesting. So stick around and I'll show you what I picked up on my holidays. Hello VC. It was never going to happen, was it? I don't really do outside broadcasts, and that swimming pool was just looking too inviting. So yeah, I'm back home now, and no chance of the records warping while I'm doing the video. So here is what I picked up in Paris and the one that I picked up in Croatia. And starting off with one that I've been after for quite a while, and it's the album Parish and Gervitz, which featured Paul Gervitz, brother of Adrian Gervitz, and he was previously in The Gun and Three Man Army. So he plays bass on this and sings. And Brian Parish, whose real name's Brian Morris, not quite sure why he changed his name, plays guitar and sings. And this is a really decent album. It's quite different to Three Man Army. It's nowhere near as heavy as that. It's more in the vein of kind of Crosby, Stills and Nash, that kind of thing, I guess. I've only played this through the once, really enjoyed it. It's not hugely consistent. Some of the better material is on the first side, but it's well worth a listen. I'm very pleased to have it. The album was produced by George Martin, so someone obviously believed in them. And I guess with Paul Gervitz's pedigree, he was worthy of having the legendary George Martin produce one of his albums. So this is a French pressing on the Path Marconi label. Well, it's kind of like a hodgepodge. It's Regal Zonophone, but the sleeve is marked with Path Marconi, which I think was part of EMI anyway. So as you can see, it's a really nice glossy copy. So yeah, I'd been after this for a long time. Funnily enough, I'd picked up a promo photo of Parish and Gervitz quite some time ago, and it was finding this promo photo that made me think, I wonder what the album's like. And now I know. I'd listened to bits of it online, but you never get quite as much of a feel for an album, I don't feel, until you've got it on vinyl and can play it through a decent system. So there you go. That's Parish and Gervitz. I should say all the albums I bought in Paris I bought at a flea market. We were staying sort of in the Montmartre area of Paris, sort of near the Sacré-Cœur, and the flea market we went to, there's a bunch of them actually just north of the I think it's Boulevard Périphérique, sort of Ring Road, up in the north of the city. And there's a whole load of flea markets up there, and there's one in particular which is over 2 floors, and the upper floor is pretty much just vinyl. So it was like a permanent record fair up there, which suited me just great. Didn't suit my wife and kids quite so much, but they went off, did their own thing, and I spent a few hours digging. So I got that Parish Gervitz album, and I also got this, which is an album that's been on my want list for a hell of a long time. I have the other Lothar and the Hand People album, which is easier to get than this one. Still don't find it everywhere, but it's certainly easy to get. Space Hymn, though, is a really hard one to track down. This is a really nice copy, still in the shrink, as you can see. It's actually a Greek pressing, and Discogs doesn't seem to know when the Greek pressing came out, but I'm assuming it was pretty much the same time as the UK and US pressings. And in fact, the Greek pressings seem to come in Garrod and Lofthouse sleeves, so a UK sleeve just with a Greek pressed disc inside. And again, really nice clean copy. I nearly bought a UK original a few months ago, that's all, which was actually not in a really good state. I imagine it was played with a ton of crackle and clicks, perhaps even jumps, I don't know. And that vendor was asking 50 quid for it, and I considered it, and I had to give myself a bit of a slap round the head and say, don't be daft. So I've got this now. Sounds great. Really good album. Came out in 1969. It's their second LP, and this is psychedelic. It's experimental. It's electronic. Basically, there's a lot of Moog synthesizer on here, and Lothar, in Lothar and the Hand People, is the name they give to their theremin, so that features fairly heavily as well. It's a really good album. Again, only managed to play this once since getting it home. Highlights for me are probably the title track, Space Hymn, which is a pretty long track and an incredibly trippy track. It's got like a real sitar drone to it, a spoken vocal, which almost sounds like a meditation guru, exhorting you to chill out, switch off, float downstream, all the rest of it. That is definitely the highlight. They do a cover on here of Heatwave, the song made famous by Martha and the Vandellas, and that's quite a faithful cover, really. Fair bit of piano on that and some fuzz guitar. And at times this isn't the heaviest of Psych albums, but it's always just something slightly unsettling about it. You always feel like it's like having a conversation with someone who seems sane, but suddenly you'll see a twitch and you think, okay, they're not quite what they seem. And that's what this album's like. It can get pretty deep and pretty out there. And I love it. Fantastic. So I'm going to be spending a lot of time with this one. Okay, next up, I picked up an album which completes my Moxie collection, Riding High. Been looking for this one for a fair time. I wouldn't normally go out and pick up I was going to say a fairly common album. I've had trouble finding it, but it's an album that you see online all the time. But I couldn't find a copy in the UK, and this was €10, and I'm very, very happy to have it in my collection. This is their third album, came out in 1977. For those who don't know, Moxie were a Canadian hard rock band, and I suppose they're in the same sort of ballpark as Riot and Tesla, and even early Ted Nugent, I suppose. The title track on here, Riding High, is one of the highlights, and that's got a real sort of boogie southern metal feel to it. And yeah, some really great riffs on here. Superb album, great band. And they even managed to find time on Another Time, Another Place for a bit of a big power ballad, which is really nicely done. So yeah, I'm a fan of Moxie. Can't go wrong with them. Don't need to say a lot more about that one, but I'm glad to have it. Then, next up, another album I've been looking for a hell of a long time. I did have a copy. I think it must have been a UK pressing. I think it was a single sleeve UK pressing. And it's one I bought online, and it was described as being in great condition, and it was trashed, and I had to send it back. And been looking for a decent copy ever since. I didn't want a dodgy copy. And it's Rare Earth's Ma album. And as the post-it note says, this is a top copy with a poster. Get rid of that now. Comes in a gatefold sleeve. And I'll dig the poster out for you. Pretty nice poster, actually. Oh, all the glue is coming unstuck on the sleeve. So there you go. Nice black and white poster, never been pinned up. Looks in great condition. And I always like that artwork on that. This rather large woman on a rocking horse. This came out in 1973. Most of you, or a lot of you, will be familiar with Rare Earth. They play soulful, funky, hard rock. And this is more of the same. I have most of their other albums. The first side of this album is the title track, Ma. It's kind of 17 minutes of, let's say, soulful, funky, hard rock jamming. And it's superb. My favourite album by them is probably Ecology, which is well worth checking out if you see that. And these albums tend not to be too expensive. For some reason, this is the one I found hardest to pick up and seems to go for the most money when you do find it. This, I think, was €20, and I'd have paid that all day long. So I've been after a copy forever. So really pleased to have this. There's some superb guitar here. For a bunch of white guys, they produce a really nice, funky sound. Like I say, some wailing guitar. There's a track on here, final track, Come With Me, which is, the title gives it away a little bit. There's quite a few sex noises on that one. So, Guns N' Roses were not the first band to have a woman in the studio simulating or making orgasmic sounds, because Rare Earth did it before them. And someone probably did it before Rare Earth. So, but a really good album if that kind of funky hard rock is, in your particular wheelhouse. Isn't that what a lot of people say? Wheelhouse. Never understood that expression. Okay, next, a couple of albums which I had no idea what these were before I saw them, and helpfully one of the vendors in this French flea market put a little post-it note on to explain what this was. Don't know if you can read that. It says Beautiful Acid Folk from 1975, original French. And this is Beautiful Acid Folk. It's sung in French. I think there's occasionally English lyrics, but mainly in French. And it is acid, psych folk. Lots of acoustic picking on here. It's an acoustic album largely. It has a dark vibe, which really gives it that acidic feel to it. It's mainly female vocals with some sort of backing vocals from one of the guys in the band, or possibly more than one of the guys. There's a couple of women in the band, and they do sort of harmonise at times. Really nice sound. There's flute on here. There's a lot of hand percussion. Some of the chords are really quite dark. So even though it seems like a folky album and a kind of quite a sunny sort of an album, I don't know, there's something really quite, something a little sinister under the surface. The title track, the title is De l'autre côte de la forêt, on the other side of the forest. They blatantly rip off, what's it called? Sandman, I think this track's called, by America. I mean, it's absolutely the same vocal melody, just with French lyrics. I can't see a credit on the sleeve to the original writers either, so I think they've claimed that one for themselves. But it sounds really nice as a French language track. Probably the highlight on here for me is the third track, Meditations, which is just over 7 minutes long, and like all the tracks on here, it's just a beautiful drifting acoustic folk number, but it gets really funky about 5 minutes in. There's a bit of a bass groove happens, and real head nodding acoustic acid folk feel to it, and saxophone joining in towards the end. This was a real find. I mean, look at that artwork as well. I absolutely love it. And there's the band. What label is this on? Oh, it's on Eurodisc. Show you that. And again, really decent copies. A few marks on it, but it plays really, really well. And the guy I bought this from, he had a turntable set up at his little unit, so I was able to try before I bought it. And yeah, it was definitely coming home with me after I heard that particular track. Meditations, absolutely superb. So if you want to check out one of the songs online, Meditations is the way to go. So Tangerine was one of the albums I'd never heard of before, one of the bands I'd never heard of before. And next up was this band, Morse Code. New one on me. This is their album La Marche des Hommes, and they were actually a band out of Quebec, Canada. They sing in French, so I imagine they were quite popular in France. And this is a French, I think it is, yeah, French pressing. No, it's not, it's a Canadian pressing. But yeah, I guess it kind of probably sold pretty well in France because of the French language aspect of it. No, actually, the sleeve's made in Canada. The record's pressed in France. There's the label for you. What label is that? Sono Press. So this came out in 1975, same as that Tangerine album. Like I say, it's all in French. And this is heavy symphonic prog, very much in the sort of vein of Peter Gabriel era Genesis. So if that's your bag, you will love this. It's fantastic. There's some other bands I could kind of compare it to, I suppose. A little bit of Kayak, perhaps a bit of Eloy, but it's that Genesis feel that really shines through. There's a lot of mellotron on here, a load of organ, synths, there's flute as well, which plays quite a big part in here, and some beautiful guitar playing, some really good electric guitar solos on here. It's surprisingly heavy at times. This is not a weak, wishy-washy symphonic prog album. It's one of the heavier ones I've heard. It's really, really good stuff. And there's the band. And that picture would have sold it. In fact, that picture is the reason I picked it up. I had no idea what it was, but I saw the band and thought, any guy with a Les Paul strapped around his neck playing a flute is going to be in a band that I like. And that is definitely the case. So like I say, yeah, the highlights, I suppose, La Marche des Hommes, the title track, 11 minutes long. And it's fantastic. That's where you need to start on this album. Give that a listen. They cram a lot into those 11 minutes, and it'll tell you everything you need to know about this band. Apart from the fact that they do a track called Cocktail, which is a real 4 on the floor number, you know, kind of drummers playing 16ths on the hi-hats, and it's got kind of almost a disco prog feel to it. Don't let that put you off, but it does have a disco prog feel. And apparently someone's done a remix of that as a disco mix, and you can kind of see why. But no, this is not a disco album. Don't be put off. This is a prog album through and through, and it's superb. You know, this and Tangerine are probably the highlights of my, the things I picked up on this holiday. Okay, and then I think the final one I bought in Paris is an album that I've never actually seen it in person before. Never seen it out in the wild, and I've put off buying it because it gets described by unscrupulous dealers as psychedelia, and it really isn't psychedelia. It's an orchestrated bubblegum pop album with nods to baroque pop and little sort of fleeting moments of psych pop, I suppose. And I've been put off it for that reason, because if something's sold to you as psych, you want it to be psych. Now, I don't have a problem with baroque pop and decent bubblegum, so I should have probably picked this up sooner. But when I saw this, Cherry People, I actually thought this was a reissue. It was in plastic sleeve, and I thought, oh, it's been reissued. It's in such great condition, I assumed it's a reissue. I bought it thinking it was a reissue. It was only when I took it away I noticed the deletion punch hole there. I thought, no, this is an original, and it's in such amazing clean shape. That's another thing made me assume that it was a reissue. It's on this heritage label, and I'm really pleased to have this. I paid €10 for this, for what's basically a mint original. And the thing that, or one of the things that has always intrigued me about it, is that the guitarist on this is a guy called Punky Meadows, who later went on to be the guitarist in Angel, who were a full-on pump rock, hard rock band. So it's interesting to see where he got his start. There he is. So yeah, you can see that perhaps they were photographed to appeal to a pre-teen girl audience, but no, this is a really interesting album. I'm very pleased to have it. I mean, like I said, there are the odd psych pop moments. There's a track called Imagination, which has phased vocals, and it tips its hat to psychedelia, certainly. Some great strong vocal melodies on that, and a hint of fuzz. So really can't go wrong with that. And the same with I'm the One Who Loves You. That's got a real confident strutting groove, and again that little hint of fuzz guitar. So yeah, I can recommend this as long as you're not expecting full-on psychedelia. This is definitely one to look out for. And you probably can't tell, the sleeve is embossed, so the facial features stand out. So yeah, really, really nice album. Okay, this is where it all goes a bit pear-shaped. I should have walked away from this. Paris was fantastic for records. We travelled down through Europe by train and by bus. Found ourselves on the island of Hvar in Croatia. And I love to buy records while I'm away which feature artists from the country I'm visiting. So I determined to buy a Croatian album. And I found one tiny little record shop on Hvar, and they had like about 3 crates of records, and I dug through, and the only thing I could find which was of any interest was this, and it's Gubek Beg. That's the name of the album, and like it says there, it's a rock opera, or is it? This came out in 1975, and first thing that obviously struck me is this sleeve. The sleeve is kind of covered in Hessian and stamped to look like some kind of a, I don't know, some kind of produce, I suppose. And it's a gatefold, so you get some interesting photos in there. I should have been slightly warned off, I suppose, by the sort of ensemble cast there, because even though this is touted as a rock opera, it's more sort of West End musical sort of show tunes territory, but sung in Croatian. The rock elements are very limited. There's a bit of guitar on the sort of opening track, which I think is just called Overture. And the finale is rather nice. It has some fairly prominent organ and sort of a massed vocal chorus. But apart from that, there's not a lot to recommend it. Apparently, from what I've read, this was written to celebrate the 400th anniversary of the Peasant Revolt in 1573. But the problem is that I was in such a desperate hurry to pick up a Croatian album that I didn't check the condition properly. And it looks pretty good on the whole. But when you run your finger around the opening track, there's a scratch that kind of follows the direction of the grooves, and it jumps all over the place. So not only is this not a great album, but it's a bad copy of a not so great album. So you live and learn. I didn't pay a huge amount for it. Would I have kept it if it was in better condition? Don't know. Maybe just for the novelty factor. Okay, I got a vinyl community video out of it, so it's not all bad. But yeah, not a huge recommendation, that one. So there you go. Sorry I didn't complete the video while I was away. Why would I? I had a swimming pool there. I had other things to do, and I'm lazy, and hey, you don't care. I will try and get another video out in the next few days, actually. I want to jump on this bandwagon of my 10 most played albums, which everyone seems to be doing at the moment, and that's a fairly easy one to knock out. So expect that one within the week, but don't hold me to it. Okay, see you again soon. Bye for now.